What's up, Buttercups? Welcome to Mean Age Daydream with me, your host, the bald and the beautiful Brian McWilliams. And wow, am I excited about the ruling that just came through today from the Supreme Court of the United States in regards to racial gerrymandering. Before we get into that, though, I want to remind you guys to hit subscribe, tell a friend. Remember, we've got 5 shows here on Lions of Liberty, including the 4 of us, me, Brian Nichols, Lou Perez, and of course, John Odermatt, and then our show Politics, we should all be subscribed to. And don't forget Father's Day, right around the corner, a perfect time to give your father the gift of Woke Word Wars, my brand new card game, hilarious. They will love it. I can promise you, whether they're libertarian, Republican, or even, yes, progressive, you will adore Woke Word Wars, available on Amazon. All right. So let's get into it. I mean, holy moly, guacamole. The Supreme Court looked at a case in Louisiana where a new district was set to be created specifically along racially gerrymandered, lines. Specifically, I'm sure, targeting the black population, because typically that's what we've seen in a lot of these cases. Democrats say that this is under the Voting Rights Act and that you're allowed to create these districts because people are being disenfranchised for voting. Now, this has not been true for years and years and years and years and years, right? The idea when this was created was that the marginalized black community, way back when we still had racial segregation, back when black people considered second-class citizens, that this was necessary to give them representation. That has not been the case in decades, right? It's all nonsense. And the fact that the Democrats continue to push it is purely so they can cling to power, which is undeserved. We look at what's happening now in California. You look at what's happening in, states like, probably Vermont. I could probably name 15 different states or more where Democrats hold a strong majority of the voter base. And that's where at least I shouldn't say voter base, because that's incorrect. The voter base is more broadly, I'd say, independent at this point in time specifically, and underrepresents a ton of conservative voters. Democrats know this, which is why they use this race-based gerrymandering in order to create districts and give themselves an advantage with seats that they know will go towards their specific political alignment, because these are voter populations that have been basically trained to only vote Democrat. And you saw some of that bleed away, though, during the last Trump election. I think a record number of black Americans voted for conservatives. But you're seeing that they use this as a lever of power. This also, of course, allows them to promise the world, to dive deep into welfare spending, dive deep into handouts for specific population groups, push DEI, push these race-based hiring practices. You name it, you got it. They promise them to these people to keep them in the pocket of the Democrat Party. Now, anybody familiar with these gerrymandered districts knows that if you look at an actual map, it's psychotic the way these districts run. They'll run, like a river snaking through a state in order to specifically target the black population in order to assure that seat goes to Democrats. It should have been unconstitutional from the get-go. It has been fought against several times, but now finally, the Supreme Court ruled 6-3 with the opinion being written by Justice Alito on this decision that this is unconstitutional, that this is in fact discriminating on the base of race, which is patently unconstitutional. Now, what are the ramifications of this? Well, number one, in Louisiana, they're not going to get that new district. So that's one victory there. But by extension, what you're going to see is now that there's precedent for this ruling, you're going to have probably the GOP specifically, but you're going to have lawsuits being pushed forward that says we need to get rid of all of these gerrymandered districts in every state that it's been applied to. And as I mentioned, there are egregious examples of these people gerrymandering specifically along the race-based lines. Now that has the potential, and I think the high probability of completely changing the face of America. When you look at the number of seats Democrats are assured to get because of the gerrymandering here, I would say conservatively, you're talking about something like 30 to 50 seats in the House. I mean, conservatively, 30 to 50 seats in the House. Because if you actually look at the demographics, as I mentioned, and the voter, basically on these new polls, the voter polls, you're seeing that Americans are in mass abandoning hardcore Democrat policies. They are not affiliating with either party. The largest, group in America right now is independent. Now, of course, these people have their own tendencies. A lot of them are still going to be voting Democrat, but they're getting away from the more insane policies of the Democrat Party, which have been pushed through in recent years. But if you just get back to saying, look, these are your districts, it's this portion, it's this portion, it's this portion, without these snaking rivers of race-based voting, you're going to see a changing face of America. You're going to see Democrats losing these seats in such a massive swath that it's going to change the face of what America looks like. Our entire policy, things that get through, that get pushed by these Democrats, are not going to be able to fly anymore. You're going to see a return, I think, to more normal American values, more normal, merit-based values. You're going to see an erasure, let's hope, of a lot of the more insane welfare policies. You're going to see erasure of a lot of these, illegal migrant favored policies. You're going to see entire changes to how our political system operates. I mean, when I say this is a nation-changing event, I mean that wholeheartedly. I don't think I've been as excited for a ruling in my entire life as I am for this ruling, because it truly will open up America for actual reform. Because every time you try to reform any of these programs, any of these ridiculous throwing money down a hole programs, everything, like I said, from welfare through to education spending, all these things, this will completely undercut the Democrat ability to blockade and push through this shit. When you have a swing, like the midterms are probably not going to be great for the GOP. And these, it's too fast to impact the latest midterms. But let's say, the next time we have a presidential election come around, it could literally flip how that looks. If a Democrat comes in the House and now you get rid of all the gerrymandered districts, you could see that this politician, that whoever it might be, let's say Kamala Harris somehow convinces the world that she's not completely brain dead. You're going to see that the House now is going to be a conservative majority. And dare I say, maybe we'll even see the potential for libertarian candidates to get in there. Because as people flee the GOP as well in the wake of war and runaway spending, maybe you have a shot here where, without the Democrat stronghold districts in, you actually have people say, you know what, let's go for a different option. But like I said, the ability to reform these programs has never had more potential. The ability to cut spending has never had more potential. The ability to stand in the way of these psychotic measures that undermine Americans' ability to spend, to save, to actually look to the future and have some positivity, because you no longer are going to have 50% of your budget going towards these entitlement spendings. You're going to have the ability to maybe even look at Obamacare, get rid of that albatross, that complete sham that was pushed by Democrats and has been able to stay in power. Well, I would argue that the Republicans could have taken it out at the knees within the last couple of years, but they haven't. But now, with this power shift that has the potential to happen within the next couple of years, you're going to see the ability to truly look at things and say, we put up with this crap long enough. You no longer have, imbeciles out there that are able to grandstand, that are able to promise the world, that are able to go out there and get their time on the Hill. And of course, the liberal media pushing all this garbage out there and saying, well, this is positioning it away and writing the narrative that the poor people are going to be disenfranchised. Well, you're not going to have those sound bites coming out, because those people will not get power. They will not be in office anymore. They will not have a soapbox to stand on any longer. And frankly, I would hope that, because now it's going to have increased competition, maybe we can actually get back to talking about real policy positions and not just promises of grandeur and handouts. Because the population that is going to be specifically voting along for those handouts is not going to be in power anymore. They're not going to have the specific voice where that goes and that plays, and they're assured to have a seat in the House any longer. It is a phase shift that has been long and desperately needed in America. And thank God this actually happened now, because we're on the precipice. And I've had conversations just with my general neighbors about this, concerns about the future for my children and what America would look like as we spend ourselves into oblivion and have more than 50% of America getting some sort of spending, whether that is healthcare benefits, whether that is welfare benefits, whether that's SNAP programs. you name it. You have more than half of America dependent on this stuff. This has the ability to rein these programs in, to get these people off of the government dole, to eliminate the nanny state, or at least rein in the nanny state, and truly give us the ability to try to get back on track, to give ourselves the ability to have confidence that our savings are not going to be bent over and RAPED to the point where every American is suffering. And I would say that even, removing these Democrats, which the Democrat Party has not, of course, been an anti-war party for a long time. Maybe now you can actually have some conservatives in there that can win these districts over, that are more moderate, that are actually going to be anti-war, that are going to be anti-spending, that are going to be pro-citizens. And, I hate the concept of America first, because America first, as defined by the elites that are in power, is not citizens first. And this is actually a conversation I think I might have with the Libertarian Party as far as the convention's coming up, by the way. If you guys want to go, the 21st to the 26th, excuse me, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, this is a conversation I think I might have with the LNC board about pushing forward a new proposition for the Libertarian Party, which is citizens first. That means individual rights. That means citizens and the decisions they want to make, the things that are going to benefit actual citizens of this nation, and not the top-down structure we have now, and making that our branded phrase, that making that our catchphrase. We are citizens first rather than America first. So anyway, there's not much more to say about this. We'll see what shakes out from it. As I said, I think you're going to see a slew of legal challenges to gerrymandering. And if I was Democrat politician right now, I'd be shaking in my fucking boots. I would be absolutely terrified, because there is no ruling that undercuts the power base, the assured, built-in, and this is why it's so corrupt, a built-in system wherein you are assured to get, whatever it might be, 20, 30, 50 seats every election because of these insane lines that have been drawn. So now, poof, it's gone. And with it goes the Democrat stronghold. Absolutely fantastic. Could not be more excited. Okay, there's that topic. Next topic. I talked about the media, how the media is going to push this. Oh my God, I'm sure the mainstream media will cover this in the SCOTUS is racist. They're allowing people to go back on the rights of these voters, yada, 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 yada. That's the way they'll paint it. But the other thing that I've seen recently is that the media is portraying, well, two things. Number one, the California billionaire tax, which I did a good morning fuckhead rant. If you want to join our Patreon, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty or lionsofliberty.locals.com. I did a whole rant on this billionaire tax, which California's introduced, which is a complete Trojan horse, because it allows people to, quote unquote, target the billionaires at 5% of their overall wealth. And this goes across state lines, which seems patently unconstitutional. But within the text of the bill, it's also written that, with a 2/3 vote in the California Senate, which is, of course, dominated by leftists and psychotic leftists for the most part, you can increase that tax to anybody. You can change the levels, change it from billionaires to just millionaires. So what you're going to see is billionaires are going to leave the state. That money is going to evaporate. And then they're going to say, okay, we need to make up for this money somewhere else. We're going to tax everybody. It is the biggest Trojan horse ever, but you're not seeing that reported in any of the mainstream media coverage. They simply report it as, we're going to tax the billionaires in every headline, without saying what the honest truth is. Mainstream media will report the gerrymandering the same way, but tough shit, because the SCOTUS ruling is what it is. Now, another thing that the mainstream media has been completely misrepresenting and misreporting on, this is, I think it was a New York Times article came out in the wake of the latest assassination attempt on President Trump, which I'm not going to get into. It's kind of old news at this point. But this report came out and it's saying, political violence is actually still very right wing. They show this garbage statistic wherein it's showcasing, right wing extremism. Now, God, what's her name? Hold on. Let me look up her exact name. It's a funky name. Batya Ungar Sargon, right? So she's pretty great follow. She debunked the living hell out of this, right? So this is from the Prosecution Project, is, of course, and this is a left-wing organization, shows that this, don't worry, it's still more right-wing. But the thing is, she dove into the data. What you're seeing is that all of this data is completely corrupt. It's absolutely falsified, because she breaks this down. She does not, she goes in and says that Guess what's not on this list saying that right-wing violence is so high? Well, they're not counting assassination attempts on Trump as left-wing violence. They're not counting the assassination attempt on Charlie Kirk. It's not in there. Doesn't count. They're not counting, any of these instances of violence during the George Floyd protests and all the people that were murdered during left-wing violence. And George Floyd protests were very clearly left-wing violence. What they do count is anything that they deem as anti-Semitic, which of course is a very, very broad category. They're counting that as right-wing extremist violence, even though most right-wingers, in fact, far more than Democrats, side with Israel, are avid and vociferous defenders of Israel and the actions of Israel. Now, that, of course, is also bled away, especially in younger conservatives and younger people in general are very anti-Israel. Of course, I shouldn't say anti-Israel. That's misrepresenting it. They're anti the actions of the Israeli state. This doesn't mean people are anti-Jewish, because I also am anti the actions of the Israeli state. But you're seeing them paint anti-Semitic violence, however they want to define it, as a right-wing problem, which seems absurd and ridiculous. Because we know left-wingers are the ones that are out there partaking in violence against, Israeli protesters. These are the people that are welcoming in all these mass migrations of Muslims. Their mass migration of people coming in from Afghanistan, from Pakistan, from any of these Muslim nations. Which, I'm sorry, if there's going to be anti-Semitic violence, I'm pretty sure it's going to come from the people that really hate the Jews, which is people coming from Muslim nations that despise Israel. Is there any debate over this? Because there shouldn't be. But yet, you're seeing your left-wing media run with the narrative that this is a very even thing. Now, anybody with a brain, anybody with eyes in their head can tell that the violence that happens. Oh, and also they're counting, protests against, abortion clinics as right-wing violence. And, the number of right-wing violence against left-wing abortion clinics. Yes, there's been some instances, right? There was a bombing, but these are very few and far between. Whereas left-wing violence, attacking people that are protesting abortion clinics, attacking people that go against, X, Y, and Z causes, these are profound. These are everyday happenings. I mean, just look at the protest at the No Kings rally where, and I'm blanking on her name, it was like a conservative streamer was out there and is violently attacked by 3 left-wing protesters, one of whom, the man, was on mainstream television programs talking about how evil Trump is and how he's a fascist and a Nazi. You're seeing that violence every single day on videos. You're seeing all of the violence that happens, as I said, in these Muslim communities where people go into the wrong area and they're getting jumped. This is not a debatable concept, and yet the mainstream media positions it as though right-wing extremism is the problem. I mean, this dovetails into the SPLC as well, right? Look at all the SPLC payments to right-wing extremist organizations, the heads of those organizations, claiming that these are racial institutions and they have to be stopped, and we're just paying informers. No, you're paying the heads of the organizations. January 6th, that was coordinated and at least aided in some way by the federal government under Biden. You look at the Charlottesville riots, which of course the SPLC had paid the head of the organization that put that together something like, hundreds of thousands of dollars. All of this SPLC payments is to coordinate racial hatred, to stoke racial hatred. And yet the media comes out and says right-wing extremism is the problem. Joe Biden out there, right-wing extremism is the problem. No, it's a fabrication. Just like this study from the Prosecution Project is a fabrication, omitting very important data points in order to paint a picture of violence in America, which is patently untrue. Patently untrue. When you look at the rhetoric that comes out, and no, you can't say rhetoric specifically leads to this violence, but when you read the manifestos of these people, it certainly seems to echo all the left-wing talking points. I mean, think of that, that idiot Maxine Waters calling for left-wingers to harass right-wing politicians in public. Think of all these things saying, we have to rise up, all the videos on TikTok and on social media of left-wingers saying, let's get our guns and fight back. This is rhetoric which, without a doubt, showcases the madness of the left. And I've long said one of the biggest things here you have to think about when you think about violence is that the left views this as this existential threat against fascism, right? That it's an existential battle for the future of the country. And progressives have always believed that the ends justify the means, right? So what if you get a little, if you crack some eggs here, we're fighting for civil rights and human rights, and X, Y, and Z are a human right. And if somebody gets in the way of that, well, they have to be killed because they're oppressors, right? This entire concept, this Marxist concept of the oppressor versus the oppressed, is a recipe for violence. If you tell an entire population that they are oppressed, that means that they are being violently held down, does it not? I mean, oppression, yes, it can be in different forms, but when you have that in your mind, that you are essentially being kept as a slave, you need to overthrow your oppressors, and that means that violence or any means to achieve that goal is acceptable. And that's what you're seeing play out here. And the fact that you've academia completely captured, and basically you're radicalizing people in the schools to believe that they are oppressed, to believe that we live in a fascist government. Well, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to find what you're looking for, even if you warp reality around that narrative. And that's what we're seeing here. And that's why you're seeing such a rise in political violence, specifically left-wing political violence. So thank God for Batya Ungar Sargon reporting this. And thank God for X. I've said it a million times. Thank God for X. I know that people had, supposedly ditched X for Blue Sky, but now Blue Sky is imploding. Massive user base just fled it because that was a left-wing echo chamber. And surprise, surprise, what do you see in Blue Sky? Well, according to all these reports coming out for people, well, Blue Sky turned out to be one of the most toxic places on earth, because even within the political sphere of the leftism, they charge and turn on each other. They, if you don't completely go in lockstep with what their thoughts are, well, then you're an oppressor. You're a demon. You're an asshole. You're a Nazi. You're a fascist. So all these people are coming back to X. Number one media platform. And yes, your algorithm is going to dictate how you get news. And we were talking about this. My buddy Carl, who's one of our big supporters for the Mufasa calls we do for our Patreon, our Pride group, or as we call them, the Polipricks now. We would be fascinated to see the algorithms of what gets delivered to leftists versus, people like myself, a libertarian. But the fact remains, X allows people to debunk this, to share this knowledge, wherein the mainstream media does not have a complete lockdown on the narrative any longer. You can't simply have them spout these bullshit statistics saying that right-wingers are out there somehow violently oppressing people when it's simply not the case. The emotional aspect of leftists has a lot to do with that. As I said, the rhetoric out there, the academic brainwashing that's out there is convincing people that they have to take violent action, or that these people just don't have the impulse control that's needed. They get so wrapped up in this narrative that they, like I said, their brains are convinced. It's like, it reminds me of the ICE protests where you've got mothers of two children lamenting the fact that they have to go out and protest and, and defend these illegal immigrants, and they leave their children at home to go into danger, which as a mother, the one thing you shouldn't do is put yourself in danger when you've got two kids like that unnecessarily. But they're convinced that this is a battle for the future of America and fascism has to be overthrown. So they're out there taking part in protests. I mean, this idiot woman who hit an ICE officer and got shot. I'm sorry. Yes, I could say, well, is that an extreme reaction? No, I don't think it is. If somebody tries to run you over with their car, you do have the position of power, having a firearm to defend yourself. You don't know what this person is going to do next. They already tried to hit you once. Yeah, I'm sorry. You get shot in that situation. But that's where these people's minds are at. And I can guarantee you, by the way, the woman in the car that tried to run over an ICE officer, the second time the guy had been, hit by a car from a leftist, by the way, I can guarantee you that was not marked down as an example of leftist violence. I can fucking guarantee you. So once again, we're seeing the benefit of X in debunking left-wing narratives. We're seeing the benefit in exposing fraudulent, activist-led, quote-unquote, research and exposing it as the utter nonsense that it is. So another win, at least in my opinion, for the good guys. Okay. Last topic of the day today. I have to see what I said because I forget. I send myself these topics and then I forget exactly what I'm going to talk about. Oh, that's right. So this last one, another exceptionally damning thing for the Biden administration. And who knows if Joe Biden knew about this, because Joe Biden clearly was not there, mentally. God knows. We still haven't gotten reported exactly what's wrong with Biden. We know he had cancer, but clearly the man wasn't all there. But the Small Business Administration, which of course is designed to give loans to small businesses trying to get their footing, trying to make their way, trying to hire and give Americans jobs. And by the way, Americans did not create jobs in the private sector over the last few years. This is all government-led hiring, right? Just nonsense job creation. But the Biden administration, under the SBA program, gave $90 million in forgivable small business loans to Planned Parenthood. Now, this just was exposed and now is being investigated, but was just exposed because a whistleblower had come out and shown emails from the Biden administration while they're coordinating these loans to Planned Parenthood, which, of course, Planned Parenthood should not be getting funded by the American government in any way, shape, or form, period, flat out. But they gave $90 million in forgivable loans to Planned Parenthood, despite it being ineligible because it is a massive organization. Planned Parenthood is I would say probably $1 billion organization, if we're being honest. Giving them $90 million in loans that are designed to go to small businesses is patently illegal. But it gets worse because it wasn't just that they gave them the loans, it's that they knew it was illegal. And this whistleblower shared these emails in which the Biden administration and the people coordinating these loans, these activists within the administration, listed them as Benghazi. That was the key phrase. That was their little secret hidey password. Instead of saying, we're giving loans to Planned Parenthood, they said, well, we're going to give this loan to Benghazi. Now, why they chose Benghazi, I have no idea. Maybe a shout out to Hillary Clinton. But they gave these loans out and secretly hid them because they knew they were illegal by calling it Benghazi, and find out that this was attacked in order to funnel money to Planned Parenthood the entire time. Clearly, this is a cover-up. Clearly, they knew what they were doing. Otherwise, you would not use that type of language. The question is, similar to the SPLC, and we talked about this on politics before, it uncovers fraud. It uncovers secret payments that is a drop in the bucket. Because just like the SPLC, if they're doing this massive organization, the SPLC, who, by the way, had $822 million in the bank, is paying out these people, these racial stokers. If the SPLC is doing it, there are any number of left-wing organizations that are doing the same thing, whether that's based upon race division, whether that's based on religious division, whatever it might be, sowing hatred, between the populations of America. That a lot more of this is going on. That this is just the tip of the iceberg. Same thing with this Biden administration. I can guarantee you that the Benghazis out there, which under this loan or any other number of government programs where they're giving money out, and USAID, of course, exposed a lot of this fraud going out. This money that's being funneled to these organizations, not only for the activist causes, because it's something they support and they're funneling money to illegally, but also because the way the Democrat dark money machine works, these big organizations of activist groups get funneled money from USAID, from the Small Business Administration, from you name it. They get funneled money, and in turn, they turn right back around and give tens of millions of dollars to Democrat candidates in order to fund their campaigns, to allow them to buy ads, to allow them to buy billboards, to allow them to get their TV time. So all of this is being undermined. And I give the Trump administration a lot of shit, and rightly so. But this is something that is so important for America to expose and to eliminate these fraudulent practices, which are propping up one side and one side only of the political sphere, giving these people such an incredible amount of ammunition. Because in politics, money is power. Every dollar is a bullet that they're firing out there into the public, and people are catching strays all the time, whether they know it or not. Because even if you try to tune it out, when you have such a volume of spending, preaching a message. I'll give you an example of the California governor's race. The amount of ads you see on any streaming platform, every single commercial break, like Amazon or, whatever these Tubi that have ads built in, you are seeing non-stop ads for left-wing candidates. This is not necessarily now Tom Steyer, the billionaire governor who everybody seems to love now because billionaires are okay if you're a leftist. The amount of spending that goes into that is no coincidence. The fact that the Republican candidates, you can't see any ads from them. You rarely see anything. Meanwhile, every single break is nonstop, ad nauseum Democrat politicians pushing the message out. That money, some of it's coming from independent donors, but a lot of it is this dark money machine, funneling money right back into the Democrat Party so that they can parcel it out and run a nonstop activism campaign in behalf of their candidates. And, it's one of those things, too. Act Blue is also under investigation. I think Paxton in Texas is now investigating Act Blue, which is one of the most gigantic Democrat fundraising operations, right? But it's exposing, and I've known about this because there was a story a couple of years ago about this, the amount of fraud in that organization where all these people who have never donated in their lives to the Democrat Party are finding out that in their names, tens of thousands of dollars have been donated to the Democrat Party. Where's the money coming from? Well, you're looking at it. SBA loans going out to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood then can parcel out that money to people to go and commit these acts of fraud. And I'm not saying that specifically Planned Parenthood did this just to cover my ass. I'm saying that this is the type of thing within the Democrat dark money machine that happens all the time, nonstop. The Trump administration clearly is targeting this and trying to cut that out. And it is, again, you talk about phase changes in America. The gerrymandering ruling now and this exposing of fraud is going to cut off not only the Democrat stronghold as far as these assured seats, but now you're cutting off the money funnel that these people depend on and operate on in order to push horseshit candidates out there that have no right or reason to be running. That would be that should in all rights be laughed out of any political setting. But because of the volume of activist messaging, political advertising that they can put out there, people just see it over and over and over again. And eventually that worms your way into the brain. And then name recognition alone, like how many candidates do you see on ballots, right? I mean, I just got the California primary information packet. There's 25 people running for governor right now in California. I know 4 of their names, and it's the 4 names that get the money in order to push their position out there, push their name out there. So when you go into the voting box, you go, well, I guess I've heard of this Tom Steyer guy. I'll vote for him. If you're your everyday Democrat, I'll vote for that guy. Or if you're independent, that's left-leaning Democrat, well, I guess I'll vote for that guy. I've heard his name 70,000 fucking times in the last 3 months because these people have endless amounts of money that's being funded by taxpayers going back to them through the dark web. I'm white-pilled for the first time in a while after seeing everything that's going on with war, endless spending, Democrat psychos. I am very, very white-pilled on this. So hopefully you guys are too. Hopefully today's episode has given you quite a bit of hope. And as I said, flowers where they're due for the Trump administration. What's going on within the SCOTUS and those appointments obviously have paid off within the Department of Justice for trying to undermine and cut out these unbelievably crazy payments that are being dispersed to the Democrat Party. I'm just excited. So there you go. Happy Wednesday, everybody. That'll do it for the show. Don't forget, hit subscribe. Don't forget, buy Woke Word Wars. And I will talk to you later. Thanks from me, Brian McWilliams, from the Lions of Liberty Podcasting Network and from Mean Age Daydream. Keep those electric eyes on me, babe, and keep that ray gun to my head. Talk to you later.